Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching this special episode of Really Dicey. This is Manny,
And I'm RJ.
and today we're going to talk about Dragonbane Bestiary. The Dragon Bestiary, I think, is pretty much our first book from the Dragonbane series that we received from Free League Publishing. It's about 150 pages. It has 9 new races you can be, 9 chapters of categories of monsters, and 63 new monsters. I'm curious if nine is a special number in this book or in this world in some way. It's just kind of coincidental. 9 new races, 9 chapters, and 63 new monsters. These names I'm going to butcher, and I apologize. The cover artist is by Johan Egerkrans, and the interior art's by David Brasgala. And it was interesting that honestly, unless I've read the credits, the art style, interior wise, is very similar to Johan's style, which is great. It fits in very perfectly. The look of the book, it looks just like a lot of the Free League style of design. Crisp, clean pages, great art, and very straightforward descriptions of of the monsters and the new races you can be as well. I'm talking too much. What's your impressions about this bestiary?
So it's just a bestiary, right? There's nothing else in here. There's no adventures. But for every creature that's in here, you do get a random encounter that involves that creature type. And you also get an adventure hook that involves that creature type. So you do get ideas for adventures or even setups for little scenarios for each creature type. The creatures really are wide variety. You get Nightkin, which are like orcs and goblins and stuff. Then you got a thing called Rarekin, which is cat people, centaur, fairies, mermaids, all kinds of things. Then you've got some insect sort of creatures. You get some trolls, some giants. You get a bunch of beasts, which are like, giant spiders and stuff, werewolves, and other mythological creatures. Then you get undead, you get dragons, and you get demons. Like you mentioned, there's 9 new playable creature types in here. Those are orc, ogre, goblin, hobgoblin, frog people, carcion, cat people, lizard people, and satyr. So we're going to be doing some spoilers because this is a book for game masters, not for players, unless you're doing the playable creature types. So there will be some spoilers in this video.
Yes, because each creature has adventure seeds information that you don't want to spoil to your players. And there was a chart. They updated their playable kin chart so that if you want to roll randomly, you could do so. Even though some of them are more rare than others, and you should really discuss with your game master before you pick them. My first impressions of this book, I have to admit that in the beginning I was kind of let down because again it was like, okay, it's the same type of monsters, minotaurs and
Chimera
yeah,
and yeah,
you know, gi-
skeletons.
yeah, giant spiders. Although I have to say, giant amoeba, that I don't know, something about that is really disturbing to me. That would frighten me. you know,
Yeah, yeah. Actually, the design and presentation of the creatures is really great, I think. And the giant amoeba's got a perfect example because so each monster has a list of monster attacks, right? Just like in the core rulebook. And those monster attacks are always like designed around that particular monster. They're very unique and they're very immersive and they add to the atmosphere of the game. And sometimes they're full of fun surprises for your players. So the giant amoeba, for example, has one attack that can snatch a weapon from your hand and immediately absorbs it into its body, right? That's a surprise that I wouldn't want to be in the receiving end of, right?
yeah. So even though at first I was like, okay, these are the same type of creatures I've seen in other role playing games, like you hinted, there's a perspective and style to them that really gives them its own flavor. I also like that it's written in the perspective of a halfling. Her name is Theodora Sneezewort, and I like that perspective because it also gives me that feeling like, okay, that's her lore, and what you present could be something very different than what the book can present. So this it's not like this is set in stone. All this information you can tweak it depending how you feel about it.
Yeah,
Um,
but I really like the creativity they've brought to each of these monsters. Some of them are a little bit more standard in the way they behave, but some of them are really creative. So like the frog people, for example, which you could play. One of their monster attacks is they spit they spit a sticky glob of saliva, right? And it can make him get stuck. But an example of a non-playable one, which I thought was really fun, is the fire demon. This is not a monster attack, but this is actually a vulnerability. They take double damage from water, which makes perfect sense for a fire demon. But the description of this says that a bucket of water inflicts D10 damage. A tankard of ale or a jug of wine deals D8 damage, and you can even spit at them. A gob of spit deals 1 point of damage.
I really like the creativity in this game. I really like the nine playable races you can choose from. The only one I'm kind of a little bit iffy about is the, let me see if I can pronounce the name right, the Karkion.
Archeon, yeah.
Just because I'm not a fan of creatures that fly. I've seen players misuse flight, but when you read the description more carefully, it does limit that, so it doesn't get abused, which is great. But yeah, I was very happy to see that cat people are involved.
Oh yeah, I love the cat people. They have that 9 lives ability, which I think is pretty cool, right? You get a boon on death rolls, or you can reduce your falling damage. It's perfect for cats.
Yes, but yeah, no, and I also like the goblin just because I just I like thinking out of the box lore wise, and I'm glad that these are available so that you're not playing your typical human versus monster type of campaigns. I love the lore where they talk about the orc chief in the beginning here, where his perspective is that he just wants to be left alone. His people wants to be left alone, and it is the human civilizations that are giving him a lot of grief. So I thought that was really
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, it is fun to see like these creatures in a little bit more depth, like basilisks, for example. You think of it just as a monster with a terrifying ability, but they actually have a fear, and they're very afraid of chickens. And if you have a chicken nearby, like they get really scared. Or the cave trolls. What the cave trolls really want is they want to eat gold. They love the taste of gold. That's that's their thing. So, heroes go around cutting them open and trying to get the gold out of their stomachs.
Do you have anything you want to add about the art style?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It looks sort of like a sketchbook, like, somebody's sketchbook, but it has color, right? So there's some inking. It's like it's been sketched, a little bit of ink, a little bit of maybe watercolor or something like that. And yeah, it looks really great, very storybook like, a lot like the core rule book.
I thought some of the adventure scenes were cool. I don't want to get too spoilery because I think some of them are pretty creative. But I felt that even though the lore was presented, I felt that having the adventure scenes kind of give you kind of a snapshot of what these creatures are like better.
Yeah, yeah, it really does. It gives them a lot of character. I'll spoil a couple of adventure seeds to demonstrate that. So for the fairies, for example, one of the adventure seed is that they will harass and pull pranks on people who are passing by. And they just want to have fun. And if the player characters like take it in good humor, they're like cool. But if the player characters get angry, then like Faye mad at you. And then like the ogre one I thought was pretty funny too, is the ogres all get drunk, and they demand from the town like beer kegs, and the town is keeps giving them beer kegs, and then they start running out. So the town comes and asks for help from the players, but they don't want the players to like go kill the ogres, and they don't want to set the ogres on another town because that wouldn't be good for neighbor relations. So it's like, well, how do the players deal with drunk ogres?
So is it me or so what I mentioned before about perspective, and hearing you talk about it is kind of giving me a better idea of it. Is that there's almost a comedic. Well, now I don't want to say comedic. It's both dark and light. It's almost like you have the choice of having this being. You can have really some really interesting dark adventures, very brutal adventures if you're into that, or at the same time you can have some uh, I don't know, Princess Brightish,
Mhm.
type of adventures where yeah, they're those that movie's serious, but it's loads of comedy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that matches what you expect when you see the cover of like the rule book or the interior pages. When I saw the mallards, right, I was thinking, oh, this is a very lighthearted, tongue-in-cheek sort of fantasy setting. And I think that kind of comes out in this design of these monsters as well.
If there's one thing I wish this book had more of, it's maybe more unique monsters. You know how like Dungeons and Dragons, they have certain creatures where you know it's Dungeons and Dragons, beholders, owlbears, mind flayers. I sort of wish this had something more to it, being that demons are like pretty much the big bads of this world and they're cause of much misery. I wish there was a bigger section for them. Perhaps what they may do in the future is maybe expand it so they could have a bigger section for like a new book for demons, a new book for dragons.
Yeah, the dragon section is basically just five versions of dragons, and they're just like, young and older and that sort of thing. And the demons, we get six kinds of demons. So it seems like a broad spectrum of monsters is really what's in this book but it's 150 pages, so it's full of content. Although I will say that there are some pages that are like full art or half art, so it's not all text. Other criticisms, I would say that the monster design is really great, and I think as a player, discovering what that monster is like when you encounter them is really the fun part, right? It's like, oh, they can do that, and that's surprising, but it makes sense. And trying to figure out ways to compensate for those strengths of the monster or overcoming the monster. However, I don't think that encountering the same monster twice is fun the second time. Because the second time you're like, okay, well, if you've seen enough of its attacks, like you know what they all are. The second time it becomes a little bit more of I know how to beat this boss, and it's just sort of a way to do it. But the discovery part of the initial encounter, that I think is where the magic lies.
Overall, I thought this was a great book. Fits very well with Dragonbane. I think when we talked about Dragonbane, the box set, we were talking about wish there was more monsters to flesh it out, and we sort of knew there must be a bestiary coming down sometime in the future, and it's here. And I think there's a lot here. Again, even if some of these monsters, or like if you're longtime players, longtime game masters, and you're seeing these monsters, you may feel like, okay, I'm fighting goblins again. But I think what they have here is that these aren't the same goblins you faced before. There's like a totally new lore, totally new like strengths and weaknesses. So it'll still feel very new, very fresh to you.
Yeah, I think so. And I think you'll just be delighted by some of the options that the monsters bring. So like they're just so immersive. The centaurs like can mock you with laughter and it just makes you angry. It makes your character angry. Like that's the effect. It makes you angry. Or the will-o-wisp just has a hilarious one called spectral headbutt. Like
Mm.
so I don't know. I think there's a lot of humor in here and it's just a lot of fun to play with these monsters. Some of them are monsters, and some of them are considered NPCs. Like they're like the skeletons, for example. They don't have like a monster attack list, so they're more like minions. But the monsters themselves, I think, are just so much fun. And there's like an adventure seed for each one. I think out of 90, oh, how many was it? 60 something
63.
features. Yeah, that could be 60 something adventures. I think there's a lot of value in that.
So viewers, if you have a copy of the Bestiary for Dragonbane, what is your favorite monsters, or what is your favorite race to be now? Now that you have all these options, let us know in the comments below. And yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Subscribe.